Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Incoming Issue 1. And I really enjoyed this issue. I was kind of interested to see where it was kind of going to go and what it was going to do to kind of set up everything that was going to be going on in Marvel kind of in 2020. But it did a very good job of interweaving everything and kind of giving us spotlights on a little different places to give us our kind of headspace of what's going on and what the overarching event is going to be. So we started off and we saw that the Masked Raider's kind of giving himself a little bit more of a reintroduction, and that he found someone dead inside of a locked room. And that's kind of how this whole issue plays off. We've got this essential murder mystery playing out until we get to the end and get to not the complete reveal, but we get big enough pieces of information that we're like, okay, this is going to be pretty big. So as he's looking over, he is what's going on in the room, since it's kind of barren and everything, trying to figure out what's going on. He senses that two people are in the area, and because of the mask of eternity that he has, it puts him on equal footing with whoever's in the area. And he finds out, like, oh, okay, everything's kind of getting sharper and everything, and he sees that Daredevil and Elektra are kind of sparring off in the distance. So he kind of shoots at him to get their attention. He has to kind of like knock out Elektra at first because she's going ham at him, and he tasks Daredevil with dealing with what's going on because his whole mission is to go after the Enclave, and this was not the operating kind of way that the Enclave usually goes about. So he's like, okay, let me set this on the people that need it to, and this will work. So Daredevil's like, all right. He gets Jessica Jones on it. She's able to get into the crime scene, sees that nothing's really going on, sees that for some reason the person has a picture of themselves in there, flips it over, sees a Holostar, and decides to go to Captain Marvel to figure out what's going on. She drives there, able to get into the Marvel. Captain Marvel has a cave kind of thing, which was actually pretty cool. She's like, all right, well, I'll pretty much see what I can do with on my end. So she goes to the Avengers, has a powwow with T'Challa, and they're like, all right, we'll kind of go through our own kind of respective ways as we get an update of Namor sending his representatives and them saying that, oh, what they can do is apologize to every fish in the sea and kiss their fins. So Namor, it really isn't seem that he's pretty keen to stop the war anytime soon that he's having with the surface world. We also be like, okay, we got to deal with Dracula's kind of stuff. We got to deal with the Squadron Supreme. There's a lot of stuff going on in Avengers that are going to be like, all right. So T'Challa's like, I'll get my agents to Wakanda on this, and Captain Marvel decides to go off to Blue Marvel and kind of deal with her Ultimates network of people to see what's going on there. They're of course both worried about Monica and her being on Strike Force and what she's doing, but they set about, and we see that Blue Marvel has been working with, of course, Jimmy Woo and Night Thrasher, and they're working on their kind of ends, trying to look at the whole Two-Face thing, the numbers and all that, and doing their own kind of thing. Jimmy goes off for his own thing. Night Thrasher tries to contact Richard Rider's Nova, and he's like fighting a battleship and is trying to deal with him having been resurrected and no Nova Corps, and he doesn't seem to be in a good headspace. Though Night Thrasher's like, hey, if you ever need anything, contact me, bro. So we see that Jimmy kind of goes around talking with his like Atlas people. Silk's kind of pissed off, like, hey, you just fucking left and left Amadeus in charge, and what the hell's going on? I was like, if you find Amadeus, let me know. And then, his hologram thing boots out. He goes to Shang-Chi next, and pretty much strikes out as well, though we see that Ares is part of that involved. He then tries Arrow and Wade next, and Arrow uses her wind powers to try and find out where Amadeus is. And we switch over to the Champions, and Amadeus is with the Champions, and having a nice little reunion with them. Pretty much they were almost going to do a movie night, but we see that, of course, they're teasing up what's going on with the Champions, as Senator Patrick is talking about young vigilantes, specifically like Amadeus doing a rampage, and how they want to protect the young people and everything, but it's like, okay, the rest of the Champions are talking about how this will be a pretty effective kind of PR campaign, and they're going to have to watch out and see what's going on with this. Let's see. We switch over then to Doc Samson and Bruce having a session, but it's actually Joe Fixit, and we see them kind of talking about what's going on with the Hulk at the moment, as the Devil Hulk and Bruce Banner are waging a war against Roxxon. It's like, okay. And Samson's trying to figure out Joe Fixit's all kind of stuff as they're talking about, like, Bruce's childhood with his father and all that. And what Joe Fixit believes his role is in there, as Bruce is pretty much goes into a defensive kind of mode and lets another kind of personality come out. I kind of like that they're delving into that, as that is an interesting aspect of Bruce, that dealing with all of this stuff going on, it's not just the Gamma thing happening and then him having the different personality of the Hulk. It's all these other different kind of people with, like, Joe Fixit and everything that he's trying to do with that. So I like that they're exploring that. After they're done kind of giving us an update on that, we see that Johnny is in Vegas because the last thing ended with Vegas. We see that demons are pretty much trying to go into the Hotel Inferno. Johnny pretty much curb stomps the living crap out of them all, and we see that he's talking about that he's actually going in to break Mephisto out. It's like, okay, this gives a little bit more credence to why people are kind of freaking out in the Ghost Rider series of what's going on with Johnny. So it's like, okay, that's some important tidbit, because we see that Wong comes out. He's like, hey, Johnny, what you doing here? He's like, hey, I gotta talk to Mephisto. So it's like, oh, shit. The next part that we get an update on is this planet Follow that gets taken out by Null as he's doing his campaign to pretty much destroy all light in the universe. And, of course, we get an update as Dylan's able to kind of see what's going on, Eddie Brock's son, as they're kind of talking together as they see that something's going on with the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, I like that we're getting information on these things, but I kind of would have rather had it have a better kind of flow with, like, other people checking in on what's going on with the murder at certain points. So we see the Brooklyn Bridge disaster, and we see Miles Spider-Man pop up, and he's having a little bit of trouble, and then Peter pops up and kind of helps him out as well. Not that Miles couldn't handle it, but it's like, oh god, some issues is going on with this tractor trailer, and of course, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man's gotta help each other out. And it's kind of cool. I do like seeing their bro moment, as after they've saved the person in the tractor trailer that had fallen off, they just go and kind of have hot chocolate. I'm like, that's fucking awesome and wholesome. And they just kind of, like, get everybody up to speed. Miles brings up the whole thing with the senator person, and Peter's like, yeah, that used to be kind of how JJ used to be, and that you kind of have to have something outside to keep you going, even if you've got, like, the power and responsibility thing happening. We get a little bit more of a interesting kind of update on Hulkling and Wiccan, as Hulkling's having some kind of conversation with someone who's like, okay, this sounds kind of weird. And then we see this light flash and Wiccan popped up, and they have a nice little moment together before Hulkling has to go off and do what he needs to do. We see that and Bar Sinister, he's kind of seeing what's going on with everybody's reactions to how the mutants are doing their whole thing with Krakoa and establishing a mutant nation and Charles's whole thing. We see that Sinister was able to, like, effectively, how do I put this? He's pretty much used the most aggressive form of negotiation possible to get the best deal possible with Mojo World to get TV and stuff for the Mutant Nation. But the thing is, it's pretty sad when you look at it and you're like, I shouldn't think that that is how that's supposed to go negotiation-wise, but it's kind of how it's gotten to. God. It is kind of funny that we see that Mr. Sinister has to deal with trying to negotiate cable rates. It's kind of an interesting thing. But he's like, completely like, there's all these channels and nothing to watch. And then remarking upon how Charles has pretty much given him a set of rules with the whole kind of bringing people back. And he's like, okay, there's some wiggle room. Seeing all these different kind of powerful mutants and how he wants Franklin Richards. It's like, okay, that's not going to be good. Which, of course, we flip over to the Fantastic Four as we see that Franklin Richards has made a master list of the special occasions that would warrant the use of his power, as he's showing his dad. And he's like, oh, okay, we'll kind of have to talk about this. But then he gets brought into effect of having to mediate a dispute between Sue and Val, because Val took out the inhibitor chip for Herbie, and he's just going off like, screw the meat bags, robot revolution. It's like, okay, so it's interesting to see how the robot revolution thing is going to be affecting that. As we also see that Johnny and Ben are having an argument because Ben's talking about posting the stuff about Sky with Johnny on the internet. He's like, don't do that. Reed, of course, is like, oh god, my house has gone mad, and decides to go outside, but that's where he meets up with Blue Marvel. He's like, hey, can you help me? And he's like, sure. We also switch over and we see Iron Man saving this plane because the autopilot's like, robot revolution, bitches, and is trying to kill the people in the plane, but he's able to save them and all that, and that's when Blue Marvel kind of pops up. He's like, hey, I kind of need a Stark kind of person to help me with this thing. And I really enjoyed this part because it really showed Arno's kind of approach to being Iron Man and how everybody's kind of like not sure about him yet, because Arno is like, hey, you could have been like one of the greatest superheroes, but you kind of shelved yourself. And he doesn't like that because he himself was shelved with how his body was, and now he's like, I'm able to do my shit. He's like, alright, let's see what happens. Blue Marvel's like, hey, can you help me with this? And he's like, it's a yes or no question. He's like, no. And then he like flies off, calls him an ass. It's like, okay. And then Arnold's like, yeah, I figured it out. And it's like 3-letter thing. And the lady's like, well, why didn't you tell me? He's like, because he didn't ask. It's like, ooh, he is going to be one interesting one to see in a team dynamic. Well, we see that Reed has been dropped off to look at the body of the deceased, and that's where he meets up with Jane Foster and everything, and finds out that the person that they're looking at is a pink Kree. It's like, okay, that is interesting. And he's able to figure out that the message was about, like, bewaring the trees, that this is Beldon, and he has an opposite with the Skrull, Raxor. And it's like, okay, we'll have to see what this beware the trees thing kind of entails. I'm thinking it could be a possible connection to Groot's people, but I'm not quite sure about that yet. So we go towards the end of the issue, and we see this typical dwelling. This person's talking about how the asset has been activated, talking to a general about something. He's like, alright, we're done. Writes his kind of message behind his own portrait as he's going off to get into his ship. Of course, we see that Captain Marvel pops up, and supposedly Beldon pops up. And like, what the hell's going on? But we know that Beldon is Reed, as he's able to kind of change his face and everything. And he says, you killed... They're saying that he killed his partner. He's like, no, he was my partner. We were working together for our peoples and all that. It's like, okay. Jessica pops up, and so does Blue Marvel. It's like, alright, what's going on here? And he's like, alright, tell me what his last words were. He's like, beware the trees. He's like, oh crap, it's too late. Empires will fall and stuff. And then he bursts into a tree thing. He's like, yeah, this dude is dead. And of course we get some tree puns and everything. It's like, yeah, we got one answer to a mystery kind of thing, but because they had figured out that Beldon had been strangled by a plant. And they're like, this is kind of weird. So we find at the end of the issue that Hulkling is with the Skrull Empire, pretty much getting ready with his sword and all that, and he goes to unite the Skrulls and the Kree and the Alliance and to fight their one enemy, Earth, and that the war begins now. It's like, oh shit, that's gonna be a big one. Kree-Skrull war was a big and important kind of thing. Now having them both united to wage war upon Earth, that's going to be a big thing. That means, like, the Fantastic Four is going to have to be pretty big involved. Avengers, of course. We'll have to see how the Inhumans factor into that. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty cool introduction to this big kind of event that we're going to be getting. It'll be interesting to see how everybody kind of interweaves into this and how it'll affect other kind of stories going throughout 2020. And to see how the Masked Raider could potentially be involved in this, because it doesn't seem like this is his kind of thing. But he does have a pretty unique power set. We'll have to see if he gets drawn in and what kind of part he will play. So I overall really enjoyed this issue and really liked all of the different kind of art styles that were used. No one kind of looked really out of place or really kind of like was really terrible. It really fit each kind of vignette that we had throughout the issue, kind of getting our touchstones on and everything. My only problem with it is that after a certain point with the murder mystery, we kind of just go to vignette that just kind of one after another without as much touching back onto the murder mystery as I would have liked. I would have liked it to go through a little bit more. Maybe potentially just like have little here things or there, like, oh, one character was like contacted by another character, it's like, couldn't help him with that or whatnot, or see other kind of things going on. But that's my only main problem with like the certain middle of it, even though there was a lot of things people needed to get downloaded on for what's going to be coming up in 2020. So this was a really good issue, and I was really excited to see where everybody's at and where this is going to be going with the Empire event. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.